Hello and welcome to Mythmakers. Mythmakers is the podcast for fantasy fans and fantasy creatives, brought to you by the Oxford Centre for Fantasy. And today I'm joined by SQuire Rushnell and Louise DuArt Rushnell, who are friends of our centre and are just about to have a film that they have been collaborating on with Netflix released in the middle of March. And this is a film about a very special dog. So in their honour, and while we talk about filmmaking, we're going to have a general theme about dogs in fiction and dogs in real life. So first of all, SQuire and Louise, perhaps you'd like to tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to make this film.
Well, that's wonderful, Julia. So wonderful to be with you. Our backgrounds are in the entertainment business, all of our lives. And I was at ABC for 20 years, and 15 of those were in children's television. Oh. So I did a lot of fantasy work and a lot of dogs that talk, you know. So it is not unusual for us to be in the dog movie making business. What we have done is we have been producing a series of books about godwinks, which are those little coincidences that we say are not coincidence. And so what has that got to do with dogs? Well, we decided that we would do a book about godwink stories, all true stories about amazing situations, always with a dog at the center of the story. And that's a dog wink. And so when we presented this to Netflix, they started crying, and we started telling them about more of the true stories that we have in our dog wink book. And when we got to Ruby, they said, let's do that. And so that's how that all kind of evolved.
I'm going to build the suspense here because, you know, that's one of the good rules of storytelling. If you don't tell everybody up front exactly how great Ruby is, you've got to carry on listening. Right. Yeah. So we're going to reach the wonderful Ruby in a minute. But I think just the theme of dogs got me thinking about how we write about dogs. We all know that thanks to the pandemic, a lot of people went out and got themselves pets, didn't they? Yeah, and if they didn't have a dog before, many more people do now. I'm a dog owner. I've got 2. Have you got dogs?
We had dogs. We don't have a dog at the moment.
Yeah.
But then you have the experience of the thing about a dog, unlike a cat, which is always feels as though you're its servant. A dog is definitely, you know, all the cliches about a man's best friend or a woman's best friend are true about them. They are characters in the house and very much part of a family as much as a dog can be. So when you turn to looking at dogs in fiction, I think some of those qualities carry across, don't they? So when you were growing up, what were the main sort of fictional products about dogs that you were watching or reading, or how have they appeared in your stories so far?
Well, when SQuire was at ABC, he did develop a show called Scooby-Doo, which is one of those wonderful fantasy dogs. And Scooby was...
Now, come on, everybody. That was worth tuning in for, just to hear that snippet. I did not know that. You mentioned Scooby-Doo when we were chatting before, but I now need to take my hat off to you because that's definitely probably my favourite cartoon dog right there. So tell us more about Scooby.
Well, I think that along the line of where you were going, that in fantasy dogs that come alive, when you start thinking about, well, what would a certain dog sound like? What would dog say? What would a dog think about? And so on and so forth. And so in our jobs, in building fantasy cartoon characters, you know, a dog like Scooby is it's building the character. And so every wonderful story has rich characters. You kind of know what those characters are all about right from the beginning, and hopefully you fall in love with them. And so Scooby is just an oversized dog who's afraid of his own shadow. And he happens to be working with a group of kids who happen to be on ghost hunts all the time. So Scooby is always afraid. And I can remember one day when I was visiting a friend of mine, Dr. Joe Barbera, Hanna-Barbera were the cartoon makers who created Scooby. And I said, Joe, I think we ought to have a new character to Scooby-Doo. And so we were paddling around his pool in Palm Springs in big Yogi Bear kind of inner tubes, paddling along. And there were all of these big shrubs around us, and we could just imagine that the little old ladies next door on either side were listening into this conversation of two grown men as we were talking about creating a new character. And I said, the character I always loved was the Tasmanian Devil. And so he was very small, but he was afraid of nothing. And so Joe, because that would be the offset to Scooby. So Joe says, yeah, I've been thinking about that. We'll have a nephew by the name of Scrappy-Doo. Yeah. And so here we are having this conversation. Well, how would he react? Well, Scooby would be in a place where he's frightened and he's jumped up into the chandelier, and the chandelier is moving and it's shaking, and in comes little Scrappy-Doo. Hello, Uncle Scoob. Good idea. You be up there so you can jump on the bad guy. So Scooby always saw his uncle as a hero and never saw any faults whatsoever. And so that is how the evolution of those little dogs came about.
I think one of the lovely things about Scooby-Doo Senior is that in a way, I think he gives the child probably emotes or relates most to him and Shaggy. They're like fragments of part of what it's like to be a child. So you can be scared as Scooby. And I suppose maybe what Scrappy-Doo is, it presents a possibility of the brave self, doesn't it?
Yes.
Absolutely.
I
expect there's some psychologist out there who's done the kids and Scrappy and Scooby are probably the entire human psyche right there, probably.
I should think so. Yeah.
I'm sure it's a thesis somewhere. So working in cartoon, obviously you don't have the problem of working with real animals because you can draw whatever you like. You can be eating a huge sandwich or swinging from the chandelier, no problem at all. But of course, some of the fiction about dogs that I remember most are ones which involved real dogs in films. And two that came to mind when I was thinking about that is, of course, we have to mention Lassie. Little Jimmy's Down the Well. I mean, Saturday mornings in the 70s seemed to be Lassie time in my memory.
Yeah.
And then more recently, the sort of standout trained dog appearing in a film I remember is the very interesting film called The Artist, about the golden age of cinema in the black and white. And I think the dog was called Uggy and was almost got an Oscar for it, I think. So can you, when you think back to watching television or films, is there any other dogs that you can remember that sort of influenced your relationship to how dogs are portrayed on film?
Well, we always loved Rin Tin Tin. I don't know.
Yeah.
Did you have Rin Tin Tin? And of course,
No.
Old Yeller. Old Yeller was one of my favorites. Of course, we didn't like the ending.
We didn't like
the ending, and it's interesting because I have two sons that just love their dogs. One of my youngest son actually has 5 dogs that he got from a shelter. And he and his wife, whenever they're looking at a dog movie, they go online to make sure. I think it's called Did the Dog Die or something. And if the dog dies, they don't
go going.
They were wounded by Old Yeller.
They were wounded, yeah. But and we don't like that either. And we'll talk about Ruby in a minute, but there was a point at the beginning of the film where it did not look promising for Ruby.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people say, just please tell me, does Ruby live?
Yeah, you need to get your listing on Does the Dog Die correct, or else the audience will drop away. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So before we come to Ruby, I told you I was building the suspense because she's such a wonderful story about her. There's a couple of other honourable mentions that need to happen now, I think, which I'm thinking of Snoopy.
Oh,
yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
Snoopy, I think, is an interesting one in that Snoopy isn't the sort of lovable family dog. Snoopy is the ironic commentator version.
Yeah.
It's quite a cat-like presence, I think, in Snoopy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We love Snoopy.
But Snoopy, you notice, doesn't live in the house. He
True.
has to stay outside
Right.
in the dog
The
house.
doghouse.
It's a yard dog, yeah.
But you always think that Charles Schulz, the cartoonist, that Snoopy was a lot of his personality.
Mm-hmm.
Charlie Brown obviously was a big part of his personality, but Snoopy was the wise voice very often. And isn't it wonderful how we can take these animals and give them a wisdom that maybe we don't have, and give them an ability to observe things that we just don't think about. Now, I think I remember you always talking about dogs when you'd see them, and you'd start, because you always did voices for a living. She did voices for cartoon characters and other characters, and as an impressionist all of her adult life. So you would look at a dog and start to wonder what he would sound like. What he would sound like.
It depends. Yeah, every dog has their own personality, and every animal actually has their own personality. We would look at that. There is a fascinating story, and how animals can actually save someone's life. Fantasy animals like Bugs Bunny.
Oh,
but this is the most fascinating story about bugs.
Well, can I tell you that story about Bugs Bunny?
Because he's not strictly a dog, but we'll allow Bugs Bunny to sort of edge in.
Bugs Bunny is we're talking about the classics here now. Bugs Bunny was the voice creation, was created, the voice of Bugs Bunny was created by Mel Blanc. And he did all of the Warner Brothers voice characters, from Porky Pig to Suffer and
Deputy Dog. Yeah. He did Deputy Dog too.
And Suffer and
Succotash.
Well, you got to do the voice.
Suffer and Succotash.
All right, thank you very much. And so Bugs Bunny was probably the most famous character that Mel Blanc ever did. Mel Blanc was in a terrible, terrible accident, automobile accident. Every bone in his body, with the exception of, I think, one arm or something like that, was broken. And he was in this mummified kind of condition, in a coma. And the doctors were worried that if he didn't come out of this coma, he would have brain damage. Weeks had gone by, and the doctors would just plead with the family to just stay there and keep talking to Mel Blanc. One day the doctor came in, and he was obviously worried. Weeks had gone by, and he came into the room making his morning rounds. And at the moment that he was about to take a look at Mel Blanc, this staid and rather serious doctor, noticed that on the screen, Bugs Bunny had just appeared on the TV in the room. And so he's hearing beep, beep, all those cartoon noises. And so the doctor, a little bit out of character, says, "Well, good morning, Bugs. How are you today?" And for the first time, Mel Blanc spoke as Bugs Bunny. "What's up, Doc?" And so
cracking a joke as he comes out of a coma. That's
and so it was later explained to me by neurologists that different parts of the brain respond to different cues, and Mel Blanc was always listening to cues from the director. Okay, what about you, Bugs? What about you, Porky? What about you,
Elmer
Fudd, or any one of those? And so that at that moment, the doctor was like the director.
And
even though Mel Blanc could not speak, Bugs Bunny was in a part of the brain, was in a little piece of his brain that did work. Mm-hmm. And so the doctor then said, "Well, how are you, Porky? Are you in there?" And so Porky Pig started to talk. And that is how Bugs Bunny, this fantasy character, helped save Mel Blanc's life and bring him out of that coma. Mm-hmm. It went on for another 30 years of doing cartoon voices.
Oh well, it's definitely that. There's a film in there as well, SQuire. Just if you're looking for a film, another film project.
Right.
So that's talking, and with voices, and Louise, hats off to you now for doing all those different voices, because that is a skill I definitely don't have. I wish I did have. But I've also thought there is quite a number of dogs who are very expressive but don't speak. And the two that came to mind, because we're in Europe over here, is Snowy from Tintin, who is obviously as intelligent as Tintin. They're the Sherlock and Watson of Belgium, and also Wallace and Gromit. Now they're the Aardman animation variations. I think you've probably seen some of those films. But if you look at Gromit, it's just his eyebrows, or the sort of not even eyebrows. It's just his eyes animate, and he doesn't need to say anything because he has such a range of very subtle commentary upon poor old Gromit. So we definitely use dogs as a kind of reflection back on us, don't we? And a commentator on our society and what we're doing with it. Got to mention Pluto. Otherwise, I'm going to get messages and people saying you forgot Pluto. I haven't forgotten.
Oh, yeah,
Pluto, Lady and the Tramp. We love Lady and the Tramp too, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
Oh yeah. No, that's a classic. But I think everyone thinks first of the scene where they're falling in love with the spaghetti. Yeah,
who could forget? It's classic.
Yeah. I think I prefer Lady and the Tramp to Pluto somehow. I think that they've got more Pluto. I think because he's lost within the ensemble. Of Mickey Mouse and everybody. Lady and Tramp is definitely very fondly remembered from my childhood. So, okay, I'm now going to introduce a real hero. We've been talking about fictional dogs. So let's have a real hero and tell us about Ruby. So you mentioned at the beginning that you came across her story, and in a whole series of books about sort of the dog wink idea of these wonderful, wonderful coincidences that happen. Tell us about Ruby.
Yeah, well, you came up with the idea.
Well, what happened was we do the Godwink series of books. So there's 12 books in the series. And one day I just had this thought that was just such a strong feeling. I said to SQuire, I think we should do a book about dogs. And he said, well, what are we going to do with the dog? Well, we did the Godwink books. And then SQuire said, well, what if we did a book called Dog Winks, and we do Godwinks, but these supernatural occurrences that happen only with dogs in the center of the story. So we thought, okay, that's good, but where are we going to get these dog stories? And the very next day on my Facebook, here pops
Godwinkers.
up called Godwinkers. And what pops up? But a woman writes, hey, did you guys see this incredible story about a canine officer in Providence, Rhode Island, and this shelter dog named Ruby? And it's in the Providence Journal. You should read it. So we read it, and SQuire said, oh my gosh, that's not only the first story for the book, but that's a movie. And so he went on then to call the principles of the story, and one thing led to another. And then the NBC Today show, SQuire was talking about it there. And then that's how the whole Netflix thing evolved. And next thing you know, March 17th, we have a movie called Rescued by Ruby. But it's a remarkable, it really is a supernatural story.
Yeah. And as there are 20 stories in the book Dog Winks, but as we were writing them, I was feeling that we needed to have the dog's voice, because here we are telling the story about people, but what about the dog? I mean, the dog is the center of the story, but we're not hearing the dog's voice. And so as we went through each one of those 20 stories, we put in thought balloons in the book, thoughts of the dog, what they might be thinking at that particular moment, what their point of view was at that particular moment, so that we were representing them. Even though they were laying under the table at the time, they certainly had an observation and they could see things that helped move the story along. And so I think that was part of the evolution of Ruby, in terms of the joy of seeing that character evolve. Ruby is just in a nutshell. It is a story about a Rhode Island State Police officer who grew up with ADHD. He had deficit or disorders and hyperactivity and so forth, and so. He always had to work harder in school. He had to try harder to be in sports. In that police academy, he had to work 10 times harder than anybody else. And so he always thought in the back of his mind that if he could be like a dog, they have a supernatural power of being able to smell, they had an ability to pick up scents that was a kind of a superhero power. And he thought that if he could be associated with a dog, that would take care of his deficits and his deficiencies. And so that's why he always wanted to be in the canine corps. But because he was ADD, he just couldn't get through. In the meantime, he finally was about to get the chance to be in the canine corps, and the budget was cut because they buy these dogs from the Ukraine that cost $10,000 or $15,000 that are bred for police work. And so he is then, through incredible dog winks, he is connected in real life with a rescue dog who is also ADD. And that's the dog named Ruby. Ruby has been rejected by 5 families, about to be euthanized because nipping was on the record just before they had to make that decision with the help of the lawyers, of course. And so when Officer Dan is paired with Ruby at the last minute, and that is the nucleus of their relationship. It is a long path of 6 months trying to train Ruby, but Ruby rises to the occasion eventually and becomes the number 1 dog in the canine unit. And then I'm not going to tell you the end of the movie because there is an amazing God wink at the end that will just blow everybody's mind. Mm-hmm. And it's 100% true. This movie really captures the true story. Everything about it is true except for one character, and we'll let you guess who that is too when you see it on Netflix.
Now, I happen to have had a little bit of forewarning about what the twist might be, and I just want to say to the people out there that it is one of those twists which, if you're a script writer, you would think up for fiction.
Yeah.
And you know that thing about fact is stranger than fiction. That is definitely the true here. So, definitely watch that and find out. Can I just ask, not because I have a dog who doesn't always come back when called, would I also pick up training tips whilst watching this movie?
Oh, yes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You've got to add that to your publicity.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, our writer in the beginning had too much training in it, way too much training. And so we kept saying, pare it back. We don't want to go to school. This is not a college degree on how to train your dog, but it is now the perfect balance of training. And people will learn a lot of things about training their dogs by watching Rescued by Ruby, starting March 17th on Netflix.
Yeah, I've got that in the calendar. I've watched I put a link to the trailer in the show notes as well, so people can watch it.
Oh, good.
So that's a true story, which is phenomenal in itself. But there's another layer of story here, isn't there? Which is about working with real animals. I was actually this weekend just reading I think it was in the Times newspaper over here, that because there's a lot of content being made over in the UK at the moment, people who supply animals for television and film are completely inundated with requests for dogs and owls and I don't know, cats, anything that appears in your favorite show, and quite often that is a dog. So huge demand for star dogs and stunt dogs and so on. How did you find your Ruby? Because the Ruby in the film isn't the real Ruby, presumably, because real Ruby is either up, in the farm upstate or...
No, Ruby's still working.
Still on the police force.
Yes.
Ruby's 11. And Ruby is Australian Shepherd Border Collie mix, which both of them are very, very smart. Both of them are highly active. And but that's one of the secrets as to Ruby's finding her purpose in life. But
Ruby, as with any Hollywood film, usually when they portray a real character, the actor or actress is a lot more, shall we say,
a little prettier,
maybe
more handsome.
Yes. So the dog that plays Ruby is beautiful, and the dog really looks like Lassie. But here's the story. It was so parallel. This dog named Bear was found on the streets in Oklahoma, very much like Ruby. They brought it to a shelter, and the days looked like they were numbered for Bear. And our trainers, who we had asked them, we said, could you possibly get a shelter dog to play a shelter dog? And they said, well, that's not going to be easy, but, we'll look. And they found this dog, Bear, at a shelter with basically the same kind of ending that Ruby would have had if Ruby wasn't saved. And that's a whole nother thing that we won't talk about because that's part of the surprise at the end. But what happened was they took a Bear, and then as they were leaving with Bear, the shelter said, you have to take Shiloh. This is Bear's best friend. They've been together in the shelter, and they'll just be heartbroken if you don't take Shiloh too. So they did. Now, Shiloh is the stand-in basically for Bear. So when you
in the
see
movie,
so they did a whole makeover on Shiloh to look just like Ruby, which is Bear, and Shiloh does a lot of the jumping and the leaping and the running, and so it's an amazing story how this dog was saved just like Ruby was.
Yeah,
it just gets better and better.
And I never knew this. Well, Bear is a male name. Bear is a male dog.
Yes.
Who plays Ruby, which is a girl dog. And I never knew that Lassie was played by a male dog.
Oh no! It's all my illusions are shattered.
Always, all the Lassies, because there's more than one. All the Lassies were played by male dogs.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. Anyway,
we had so much fun making this film, and everyone loved these dogs so much. I want to be that dog. I want to be Ruby. I really do, because Ruby gets treated great.
So, is Bear still working as a film dog now? Is this begun a career, or is Bear now living with the trainer? Happily?
Living with the trainers.
Yeah. And I'm sure Bear will have more screen appearances.
I think this is
really an amazing dog.
I think Bear almost had to live with the trainers because the trainers had to teach Bear to be very naughty, had to tear up couches, and to do all sorts of things and dig holes in lawns and everything. So I can't imagine.
You wonder if that is psychologically damaging to Bear. We saw the movie that is out now called Dog.
Yes,
which we're not raving about because we're happy dog, happy movie people, and that's a bit on the dark side for us. But it's a war dog, and you think about dogs that are used for police work and war. I mean, they're doing their job, but they become psychologically, damaged because of their work.
You wonder, yeah. But I think they know how to undo it all. I think the
trainers do, yes.
Because it would be so funny because we would see some of the scenes and you don't hear the trainers, but they'd say, dig it, dig it, dig it, dig it, dig it, dig it, and
as the dog is digging up the lawn.
Say, come on, dig it, dig it, dig it, dig it, dig it, and you see the dog digging up the mug. Good dog. Dig it. So I wouldn't think that would be.
How do you undo that?
How do you undo that? I don't know.
Well, this is the next film, isn't it? And that's where all dog owners will be tuning in to find out how to undo bad habits. I would have thought that they probably work really hard on cues, which don't exist in ordinary life, or else the trainer would be perpetually living in a house that is, wrecked, which can't be acceptable. So Rescued by Ruby is a most fantastic story. And I'm sure everyone will really enjoy meeting this incredible dog. And I'm actually even more impressed to find that Ruby could not be pulled away from her day job to become a film star. I think that has added an extra layer for me of pleasure, thinking that she's out there working as we speak. We always have as a tradition on these podcasts to pick where in all the fantasy world is the best place to be something, or where's the best river, where's the best inn, that kind of thing. And in your honor, in the honor of Ruby and Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo, we will have to choose where is the best place to be a dog. Now, just to give you the sort of lie of the land, you can choose any sort of fantasy world. It can be the worlds of myths and legends. So, it could be Cerberus at the gates of Hades, or one of the, one of those mythic dogs, or it could be from a cartoon. It really doesn't matter. The choice is yours. What are you going to choose?
Well, I would want to be one of Queen Elizabeth's dogs, one of the Gorkies.
Ooh.
I would love that, to live in the palace and to go. And she's always taking the dogs for a walkie. I'd love to.
That's real life. So you have to choose a fictional version of that. But there's plenty of fictional versions of the Queen that you can choose. So in The Crown, that's a fantasy.
I don't know.
Well, I think after watching Ruby, and the big attraction for Ruby was raw hot dogs. So I would say the best place is in a hot dog factory. I don't think there's any question about that. That's where Ruby would want to be.
Probably not good for her health, though. We have a lot of people who listen to this who are Tolkien fans, and I should just do an honourable mention to Tolkien has 2 talking dogs that I could remember. One is a dog called Huan, or Huan, who appears in the Silmarillion, and he plays a wonderful part in the story of Beren and Luthien, which is one of the central love stories that Tolkien made up. But he does have a heroic but tragic end, so I wouldn't recommend being a dog in the first stage of Tolkien's Middle-earth. And then his other dog is one in his story called The Farmer Giles of Ham, where it's a farmer's dog. And that story involves the arrival of a dragon into the area. It's like a comic story of a medieval setting. So that dog gets quite a good deal as well. But actually, you know what? I think the best place to be a dog is right under our noses. It's Scooby-Doo. I mean, you get your hot dogs, Squire, don't you? Plenty of them, and Scooby snacks, and you get to ride around with your friends in a mystery machine.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So, to be honest, what's not to like? So,
and Ruby didn't have to have much. Didn't have to learn much language.
Scooby-Doo.
I mean, what else did you have to know about Scooby?
That's true.
Anybody can talk like Scooby.
So I think that is the best fantasy world, the world of Scooby. Thank you so much for joining us to talk about dogs in fantasy and in real life. I think, it's even more exciting when you find something that feels like fantasy but actually turns out to be true. And we wish you all the best with your film when it comes out in March the 17th. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Julia.
Thanks for listening to Mythmakers Podcast, brought to you by the Oxford Centre for Fantasy. Visit oxfordcenterforfantasy.org to join in the fun. Find out about our online courses, in-person stays in Oxford, Plus, visit our shop for great gifts. Tell a friend and subscribe wherever you find your favorite podcasts worldwide.
Warning, the following ZipRecruiter radio spot you are about to hear is going to be filled with F-words.
When you're hiring, we at ZipRecruiter know you can feel frustrated, forlorn even, like your efforts are futile, and you can spend a fortune trying to find fabulous people, only to get flooded with candidates who are just fine. Fortunately, ZipRecruiter figured out how to fix all that. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/zip. With ZipRecruiter, you can forget your frustrations because we find the right people for your roles fast, which is our absolute favorite F word. In fact, 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day.
Fantastic!
So, whether you need to hire 4, 40, or 400 people, get ready to meet first-rate talent. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/zip to try ZipRecruiter for free. Don't forget, that's ZipRecruiter.com/zip. Finally, that's ZipRecruiter.com/zip.